This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marcioni and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni, back from amazing.
I'm back from a week at the Anton Retreat, the affiliated New Thought Network retreat, which was at Unity Village last week, and all ready for you to ask another one of your insightful questions or bring up one of your insightful topics.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to give a shout out. We got a lovely donation from actually a practitioner at the Centers for Spiritual Living who is filled and fed by the podcast and just wanted to say thank you. So thank you right back. And it's nice to know that the work is going appreciated. So
very much appreciated. So very encouraging.
Yeah. So you want to talk about evolution or evolving consciousness?
Yes. Well, it was big. We were talking about it in the pre-show.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's the thing. Evolution happens, whether you're ready for it, whether you don't get to vote. It's just happens. And there's just things that happen in life. And I kind of marvel at the resistance that I experience from folks sometime with not wanting to go with the change. I'll put it like that. And that's really nothing new, right? So because people didn't want to deal with computers and whatever have you. And so now it's the wind things and solar panels, everybody's got an opinion. And I find myself saying, okay, look, let me look at this. If it's not going to change, let me figure out how I can, adjust myself to whatever is not going to change. But I'm finding so much resistance in conversations about spiritual evolution and so forth. This is such a big topic. So the saying is, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yep.
Likewise, I think when the teacher is ready, the student will appear. So it's no pushing or forcing anybody to understand anything, in terms of evolving consciousness and all that. The things are going to change. They are changing. And
they are changing. They have changed and they continue to change.
And it's not going to, no matter how much you protest, it is not going to be the same, So what's I don't know. I was going to ask a stupid question, why do people fight it? But it just changes.
Yeah.
And the example I gave you back in the pre-show was how a man was bent over, and you see that picture, then he's upright until he was completely upright. I don't think he had a vote in the evolution of the human.
Right. Barbara Marsh Hubbard used to call it the ever upward spiral.
Yes.
And we're moving on that ever upward spiral, whether we want to or not. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing is that, back in the good old days, the argument, the disagreement was between the people who believed in evolution and the people who believed in creation. And they're insisting that, no, Genesis is the creation story, and that's the way everything came into being. God said, let there be, and there was. Okay, fine. We'll leave aside the way that we can observe evolution happening in our own lives. Right after that beginning story, as I recall, and I'm starting to go back and misread scripture because I'm not reading it the way people tell me how. I'm actually reading what's written down there and comparing it to other versions. Weren't there a whole bunch of begats right after that? That this guy begat that guy, begat that guy, begat whatever, and it's like 40 generations of begats.
Yeah, you're a little bit further down the road, but you're good. Go ahead.
What do you think all that begatting is about? That is evolution. That's one thing growing from another thing, growing from and tracing our lineage back. And every step along the way, there's growth, there's change, there's expansion.
Yes, exactly. So I don't want to be mean and say, well, why fight it? But at every point in our history of humankind, there has been evolution.
Yeah.
And no matter how you protest it, it is because it is supposed to be. We're not supposed to stay the same. Let's just look at AI that's got a lot of people all shook up. That I looked at it for a second and I thought, okay, how is this going to mess with what I do? And
Right.
I looked at it and I thought, wait a minute. I wrote sermons for 30 years, more than that, before there ever was an AI. And I will continue to write, right from here. So I'm not afraid of it. It's not going to put me out of business. As a matter of fact, it's going to help me because I told you I never knew how to title sermons. I was always terrible at that. So I just explained to AI what my point is. Give me a title for whatever it is. I said, well, this could work. Why fight?
And for myself, I like to give AI my story and say, give me 5 titles. And then I get to choose which of the titles I particularly like. Yeah, I've been exposed. There a bunch of people at the event that I was at last week were enamored with or talking about AI. And so I've been doing a little bit more with it. And AI is wonderful because it will write something or create something that seems pretty reasonable and seems pretty familiar. And that's because AI is actually a very, very well-read parrot. The large language model has digested huge amounts of stuff. When you ask it a question, it will give you a typical answer. Mm-hmm. So what I like to do is some people, say they give AI a prompt and they look at what comes back and say, yeah, this is right. But it's not that it's right. It's just people have been saying that forever, and it's just summarizing your question with all of the best answers that have ever been given because they've all been ranked. What I look for is there anything new?
Okay. So that takes me to something else along that same line, right? The Bible said there's nothing new under the sun. So when I was younger and I read that, I had no clue what it meant. But now, after being around the sun a few times, man, there is nothing new under the sun. It really isn't. It's like, I'm thinking about Ike. Reverend Ike said something that early on when I first, kind of peeped into New Thought, he said, God moves in you, through you, and as you. I will never forget the moment that I read that. It was a life-changing moment for me. And I thought, well, now wait a minute. Then what I'm getting is from that which God said already a long time ago through Mr. Emerson or somebody else, right? So this is cool. I mean, it's just God. It's what God says in so many different ways. So whoever's listening can hear it, right?
Yeah, and nothing new under the sun does not include understanding. We can have a new understanding of something that's been going on for a long time. Scientists spend a lot of energy understanding the natural laws of the universe because that's what we're working with. And even before the airplane was invented, before there was any ability for people to fly, all the laws of aerodynamics already existed.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nothing new under the sun. Same thing with ballistics. If you fire a missile from here to there, it's going to follow a particular path. It's going to obey the laws of physics. And gravity is going to work the same way that it always has. And everything works according to principle. That is the nothing new under the sun. Can we have a different idea? Can we say, hey, I have an idea for making a spaceship, and let's go ahead and use the materials that we've developed and the things that we've learned how to make and manufacture and create and process and assemble and create something new that way? Yeah, but that's not under the sun.
It's,
Sun
yeah.
is really far away.
And listen, to me, it still works. There's nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new in the human experience because it's infinite intelligence and knowledge that has been there. We use it differently, yes. So there goes the point of the argument. We are living in a different culture now. Things are different. People think different. There's different things available to us, so we're reacting to things differently. And all of this that was already there is still here for us we're not changing it necessarily, we're adapting it to...
And understanding it and working with it differently, yeah.
Yeah, because can you imagine if everything stayed the same? I mean, I'm thinking of when I was growing up, it was pretty cool, but that's because I didn't know. But listen, I remember when I remember the blue laws, and I don't know if they had it all over the country, but in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, if you opened your store on Sunday, you got a fine from somewhere.
Right.
So stores were closed. Okay, then they built these malls, and the what's that thing down at the 10th and Market in Philadelphia, the gallery,
the gallery mall, yeah.
Yeah, and then there was Granite Run and the different ones. And the subject for sermons for the longest time was the sin of the malls and nobody's coming to church. And I'm thinking, you know what? Things have changed. So you can't do church in a satisfactory way on Sunday like you used to. People are not going to not go to the malls. This is a wonderful thing. So, hey, I'll see you on Monday, Tuesday. Open the door. And man, I could never get, even back then. It just seems simple to me, right? Go with the flow. And I'm thinking like, this is God coming up with new ideas and new stuff for us to try. Why fight it?
Yeah. If the only reason people are going to church is because the mall isn't open, really?
Well, I mean, okay.
Shouldn't there be a slightly more compelling reason to go to church? Like, I want to be at church, not there's nothing else to do?
Oh, come on now. You know, that was a reason that a lot of people, what else was there to do in life back in the old days?
Sleep in.
You couldn't sleep. You couldn't sleep in. You weren't going to get your prayers answered. You
No,
had to be.
That's why you go to church. I get
Yeah,
it. I get it. But I don't think that, yeah. So the blue laws came and went.
yeah, but it's like things are meant to change, right? God doesn't change necessarily. It's you just know a different. You know more dimensions of God. Let's think of God as a creative person, individual, whatever. I don't
Creative
like
entity.
that, but
There you go.
okay, that's good. So you can't exhaust it. It just continues to unfold, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious. Like, don't stop here. You know, what I'm looking for might be in the next unfoldment. So let's get on with it.
Could be.
Yeah.
And the chances of it surprising God, pretty limited, I think.
Yeah. So I'm making a joke out of it, but it's not really, because a lot of people are really struggling with, it's really just information that is coming to people's awareness that has been there all along. You know, I was reading something by Napoleon Hill, and he wrote that wonderful book, Think and Grow Rich.
Mm-hmm.
But if you read it again between the lines, it was about a whole lot more than making money.
Mm-hmm.
Whole lot more.
Yeah, and making money is a side effect of an evolving consciousness.
Exactly.
A prosperity consciousness, it turns out it shows up as money, but it also shows up as influence and connections and love and relationships, and is the good health and vitality because there's more money available, or is that part of the same process of the good showing up in life? Don't know.
Listen, hanging out with you, I learned so much, right? So I went back to that book. I said, whoa, Napoleon. Hey, you new thought rascal, you. Listen. So I'm not saying that he was sliding things in. I'm saying that, it's all in there, along with Jim Rohn, who, there's complementary ideas. And I just thought of it. I heard you saying, there is but one. There's just the one. It's only one. So I'm thinking, I don't care how you say it. It still comes from the same source.
That's
so
right.
Is that a problem? Is that a problem?
It is only a problem if you want it to be a problem. If you're looking for a problem, you shall certainly find one. And if not, then it's not necessary. But how about that?
Well, that's how Wayne Dyer said something similar to that. He said, people look for things to be wrong and upset about. And that's a comfort zone, I think, because you don't like change. So you can fight against change. That's a comfortable place to be, except you lose.
Well, yeah, there's a whole lot of, side effects and consequences for all that sort of stuff. Let's take a break and then talk some more about evolving consciousness, evolution, and whatever that leads to.
Learn to put practical prayer to work in your life. The steps are simple to learn and let you begin to get real results to create the life of your dreams immediately. Reverend Bill Marcione's widely acclaimed book, Practical Prayer for Real Results, gives you a clear summary of the new thought principles behind practical prayer and the series of easy-to-understand steps found in the most effective prayers from religions and spiritual practices all over the world and throughout history. Practical prayer is not a replacement for your religion or practice. It's a technique to make the work you do in consciousness even more effective. The book includes 40 prayers on various topics that you can adapt as needed and use as your own. Practical Prayer for Real Results is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook on Amazon or at b-the-light.com. That's b-the-light.com.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcione, who's been away on a wonderful, wonderful experience, and I jerked you right back into the reality of talking about hard stuff.
Well, yeah, the topic of the retreat was exploring next level consciousness, and then you dragged me into evolving consciousness. So it's like not that big of a change as far as I'm concerned, but a wonderful topic because people like to push against stuff. Here's something that's happening, and so I can complain about it, I can argue with it, I can fight with it. And the way to deal with it on the level of consciousness is to say, well, this is what it is. This is what my experience has been up until now. Now, what do I want to have my next experience be? And it doesn't have to have anything to do with what's happened before. If I've been having this experience of poverty and lack and challenge in my life, the next thing that happens is not, I'm going to get past the poverty. I'm not going to be impoverished. I'm not going to be broke. It's like, what does that look like and what does that feel like? Because the creative process is always working. And once I identify what I want to evolve into, then all manner of possibilities open up for me to make that happen. And that's where evolution and conscious evolution is happening. If I'm still having the thinking that I used to have, then I'm going to keep on having the experiences that I used to have, and then I'll be able to complain about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when I was hearing you say that, it's really very individual, because while everything is changing around us very quickly too, by the way. And I think I'm still stuck on technological changes because I'm constantly going through these learning curves. But yes, back to back. But things are changing, but you can fight and not do it. But how, you said, how do I want to experience my life in a different way? Not just differently, but in a specific way that I might be wanting something to change. And so I got to stop for a minute and really think, how do I want that to look? And then shift into that rather than think too much about the hard work and the impossibility of it, because it's possible, right? You can't say that my hope and dream is not possible.
Well, yeah, if we say my hope and dream is not possible, then in the same sentence, we're saying this is what we want and claiming that we're never going to have it.
Exactly. You can't know. Do you know what I mean? You can't. And so you can't close the door on God. I use the word magic a lot because I like it.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of makes the point. God, in that space of freedom and allowing, to me, that's where the magic happens. So you can resist things if you wish, but you'll never experience the magic, the change.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
we need to leave a little space for the magic to happen.
Yeah.
Like if it's got to happen exactly this way at exactly this time frame, and I'm going to be in control of how it's all going to happen, there's no room for something spontaneous or miraculous to show up. Because we've got all the doors bolted, keeping the good out.
So that, that was me, right? Because I would figure it out, and this is, and then I thought, oh, you know what? I kind of like it the other way, because in experimenting with it, and I'll just be honest and use that word, experimenting with it, things started happening that I could not have imagined. And even recently, could not have imagined. And I'm thinking, why does my opinion matter? Let me get out.
Well, your opinion matters to you.
Yeah, but not as much as it did. Not as much as it did. I wanted something.
Yeah.
I wanted something.
I was preparing for my thesis, and actually there was a big project involved in proving scientifically that prayer works. And I had a prestigious primary investigator who was willing to work on the project with me. And so he was going to be, and his team were going to set up the methodology. And so what he really wanted to do is, I told him it's prayer, and we're doing practical prayer, and we can pray for anything and create transformation in all sorts of different areas of life. And I gave him the 4 examples: health, wealth, love, and creativity. Health is all about our physical experience. Wealth is about our prosperity and enoughness. Love is all of our relationships, whether it's with our significant other or our family, or our coworkers. And work is about the way that we're sharing our gifts in the world, our creative expression. And he immediately wanted to divvy it up. So when we did the intake with somebody, we would put them into one of the categories. Okay, so this person is looking for prosperity. So we're going to put them into the prosperity lane, and we're going to do prosperity prayers, and we're going to track them for prosperity over a period of time. And I said, that's not going to work. And he said, well, why not? And I said, that's not going to work because when somebody comes in and they want a prayer for prosperity, and we do the prayer for prosperity, suddenly they have plenty of money. And the next week they come back and they say, I'd really like somebody to spend my time and money with. So I really need a relationship. And so we do the prayer for this wonderful relationship, and they got plenty of money in a relationship, and then suddenly somebody gets sick, and then it changes again. So if you try and isolate it for that, you're trying to control this infinite creative process, and it doesn't work because we are very fluid. And when we think that evolving consciousness isn't there, no, I'm always going to be in the lane of needing a relationship. No, it's possible for that to completely change. That bad news, sad news story can change and go away and no longer be of concern anymore. And that's when you talk about evolution, it's things being different. So I remember when I was a kid, we had the TV, and there were like 4 channels that you could watch on TV. So you turn the TV on, there's nothing on this channel, this channel, this. You go through all of them, and sometimes you go through 2 or 3 times, and it's like there's nothing to watch. You turn the TV off, and you go read a book. Now, there's 9,000 channels of still nothing to watch. And if you don't want to watch it on TV, then you can look at it on YouTube, or you can go into somebody's really deep library. And now the goal is, how can I avoid spending another hour looking for something to watch without actually watching anything except the guide channel? It's a completely different problem.
Yeah.
It has evolved from a sense of limitation in one way, where we didn't have enough choices of what to watch, to now it's a limitation of I don't have the time or the resource to understand exactly what's available that's going to bring some joy into my life. Mm-hmm. I think that's evolution. Is it good? Is it bad? You get to make the call.
I think it's good. I do. I think evolution in itself is good. You have to figure out how to live within an evolving universe, an evolving culture, an evolving lifestyle. Everything is always changing anyway. So we make little adaptations in different ways. So, when the supermarket goes out of business over here, you got to go to another one, and everything is set up differently. And so you got to, the big thing when I came from moving from Philly to New Jersey is that in New Jersey, you can take the shopping cart out of the supermarket, right? And take your groceries straight to the car. Now, some people might laugh and think that's what are you talking about? But in Philly, it was such a chore to shop. Over here, now, what I see is, listen to this, people leave the shopping carts in the parking lot. They don't bother to, take it back. I take mine back. I don't care how cold it is, whatever. I take that thing back because I'm so grateful that I'm able to do it. Now, that's evolution. You learn how to work with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you live in New Jersey. You're not even allowed to pump your own gas.
Isn't that terrible? That's why I gas up before I come to Philly. But you go, those are non-threatening changes, I suppose. But the principle, I think, is still the same. What good can I get from this? In my world, how's this going to work for me? And like the sermon title, you said you get 5 sermon titles and choose one. That's great. Listen, just give me one. Whatever you give me, I'm happy, because I've gone to the pulpit with no title whatsoever. So that's, you work with it.
Yeah. And because of all the time that I spent as a writer, an advertising writer in the ad business, I'm gonna tweak and fine tune. So I say, AI, ChatGPT, give me 5 different titles, and I'm not going to use any of the 5, but I'm going to use a little bit from this one, an inspiration from that one, an idea from the other, and I'll put together the one that I like myself, and I'm using it as input. But that's just the very tippy end of artificial intelligence. It's reading me back everything that's ever been written, having quantified it as to what it thinks might possibly be good. But the arbiter is me. Those are going to be my words. Let me use words that I would use.
When my husband and I went to seminary at the same time, and we were talking the other day about how we were in the stacks, and you take a ladder and you go up and you find those old books, and you're up there sneezing and getting dust all over your clothes because you were doing research, and that was. We felt so good about doing this. We actually learned it because you had to get a magnifying glass because the print was so tiny and the pages were torn. That was part of it. Now you go online, or like you said, AI will give us all of that. Now, does that mean that it's not legitimate? because now you can get so much more information than we were able to get in 5 hours a night going up in the stacks sneezing. You could just, it's right at your fingertips. How can that not be good?
Because it's at your fingertips and your fingertips are right here. If we're relying on what's delivered to our fingertips, we might miss the nuance and the depth. And I'm going to just give you this example before we take another break. Have you ever read the same book or the same passage more than once, and the 5th or the 10th or the 12th time through got something new out of it? Oh,
Sure. Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Well, if you only got the fingertip stuff, you'd never get that. That nuance, that stuff that's hidden beneath the subtext. If it's just being summarized and giving you, the top line response, we can miss the depth.
But there's a way, and this is probably evolution, where evolution comes in. There is a way to study using AI, learning how to ask the questions and phrase, what do they call it? It'll come to me.
The prompts.
Yes, how to phrase the prompts. That will get you more of the nuances that you're talking about. I don't think it's good to just go in and say, give me this, and then you take this and that's it. I mean, I treat everything as though there's tons of stuff between the lines. And I'll take AI any day as opposed to going up in the stacks and sneezing.
Mm-hmm.
When we left seminary, we got a notice that they were getting rid of books in the library and so forth, and you could come and get as much as you wanted. And so, I'm going to tell you, we went up there with a U-Haul and we got all these books. It just had so many. And it was sort of like a badge of honor to have all these wonderful books.
Yeah.
Okay, so now a lot of that's online.
Yep.
And I got more room in my house.
Okay. Well, I have actually a homework assignment for you and for anybody else who's listening and wants to play along with this. And this is because you have, over the course of your 35 years in ministry, plus your precursor life, a pretty deep familiarity with the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like you to choose a passage from the Bible that you have found profound new meaning from, and then ask AI what it means. And see if you don't get what everybody else says it means. And see how many different ways that you can ask and how you have to refine the prompt so that it'll actually come close to what you've gleaned from
it. You know
what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen.
I know. And I don't have to do this assignment either. While you were saying, I was like, yeah,
it's not going to work.
It's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. All right. Well, just give it a try anyway. Just don't fight evolution so much.
Yeah. Well, with your inspiration, I'm actually teaching a class that's going to start in November on learn to do healing like Jesus. Because it says right there in Scripture how to do it. But according to the conversations you and I have had, nobody thinks that's what it means. Well, not nobody.
Yeah, but you're going to open a lot of can of worms on why people don't do it that way.
I don't care. Whatever their reason is, it's fine. And I have some understanding, but that's not what the class is going to be about.
It's not fine. It is not fine because you missed the whole, your class is going to be amazing, right? You missed the whole point in what Jesus was saying. It's like people take what Jesus said and wrap it all up in the cult things that are going on now. And it's based on your opinion and how you feel and political stuff. Come on, strip all that away.
All right. I knew it was easy to get you up on a soapbox.
Yeah.
But listen, this is one of your topics.
Because Jesus was cooler than people think, right? He was cool for a whole lot of other reasons than people think, Nah, I'm going to leave that alone because then some people aren't going to speak to me if I say that. But
Jesus is cool, but not why you think. Okay.
Not what you think, or for the reasons.
It's not why you think he's cool. All right. We'll make T-shirts like that. And in the meantime, We're going to take another break. And when we return, there will be a practical prayer that has something to do with evolving consciousness.
All right.
Here's Reverend Bill letting you know that the Practical Prayer for Real Results class is now available on demand. That's right, you can take it at your own pace, anytime you want. All of the information is at bethelight.com. That's b-the-light.com. You know where to find that stuff. The class is 5 lessons, broken down into 18 modules, and you can take them at whatever pace is comfortable for you. As you work through the process, it starts out with the theory, goes into the practice, there are experiential activities and exercises, and at the end of the program, you will wind up with an understanding of how practical prayer works, and a practical prayer for yourself that will work to create transformation in your life. And as you know, it works for everything. Take a look at the class online at bethelight.com. There's a sample lesson so you can see how the class is going to work for you, and then dive in. The great news is it's on sale now. You can register and save $20 off of the regular price. I'm looking forward to seeing you in class.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni. This has been better than I thought.
This was an amazing conversation about evolution and evolving consciousness. And as far as I'm concerned, has teed us up for a wonderful, right in the strike zone practical prayer. Because that, in a lot of ways, is what practical prayer is about. It's the technique that we can use when an experience that we've been having in our life is not to our liking, to be able to look at that, pivot, say, instead of having that experience, this is what I'd like to have instead, align with the infinite, and then invite that new experience in. It is a process that invites transformation. And the big thing that happens in there is an evolution in consciousness, because we've had the consciousness of the experience that we've been having. Whatever it is that's showing up in our life, it's because that's what we believe is appropriate or necessary or sufficient for us. And it is, and as long as we believe that that's okay, then it continues to happen for us because it's okay with us. And as soon as we set a new intention, as soon as we open to something different, then that same creative power that creates everything evolves our experience into something new. So the prayer is about evolving our consciousness to allow evolution to happen in our experience. And this works in any area of our life. Whatever is going on, whatever has got our attention that hasn't been working or that we think can be better or we prefer to have instead of talking about the problem, instead of saying, I don't want to be in a relationship like this, or I don't want to have my body feel like that, or I don't want to be having these sorts of financial concerns or relationship issues or stuckness in my life. Instead of talking about what we've had that we don't like, what do we want to have instead? What will that new experience look like? And more importantly, what will that new experience feel like? And as we are prepared to do that, we can release whatever that experience of the past has been, let go of the locks and anchors that are keeping us attached to that, and open to the awareness of that infinite creative power, that divine love, that one source, the creative power that is in back of everything. That one source that has been sharing itself since the beginning of time, whether you think that means God said, let there be light, and there was light. And since there was only God, the light came from God, and everything else has as well. Or the scientific explanation of the Big Bang, where that singularity started expanding and evolving and unfolding. 14.2 billion years later, here we are. That's evolution. They're both stories of evolution told in a different way. And the next step in evolution is not only possible, it's already happening. How that evolution happens, how that next step unfolds for each of us is fluid and flexible. This is an infinite creative power that creates everything and can create anything. So as we acknowledge that divine power and presence that is within, and we let go of our attachment to things being the way that they have been, we're able to open ourselves up to that next new experience that we're inviting. And each of us is doing that in our own way. I invite everyone within the sound of my voice to identify that experience, that pivot of what has no longer, what no longer serves. What is it that we're ready to let go of, to move beyond, to transcend. And pivot away from that. What does that new experience feel like? What does that new experience look like? Invite in that experience. Breathe into that. Breathe in that new goodness, that uplift, that freshness. Breathe out whatever's stale and old and no longer necessary. And understand that we are in partnership with an infinite creative power. And that power is available and active and creating right now and always, and it's now creating this. As we turn towards the good that we're seeking, that good starts to fill our lives. It shows up in remarkable ways, some that are completely understandable, that we would have written down in a script ourselves if we were in charge. And other times it shows up in such a circuitous or sudden or unexpected way. It's just a reminder that that infinite creative power is always ready. It's always working. And I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the good. I'm grateful for the experience that each one is having. I'm grateful for the transformation. And I'm certainly grateful for the awareness of this creative process and for the ability for me to speak this word on behalf of each of us and to know without any question whatsoever that this good is already happening. The law is already responding. The stories are beginning to form, and we get to tell them and be them and share them. So with gratitude for all this good, I speak this word. And I speak it into that creative law, and I know it's already creating. And so it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marcioni and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com.
be-the-light.com.
Where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit,
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newnewthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.